Big Mo 89 said, if the expectation in a traditional relationship is for the man to lay down his life in service of his family to protect or even provide, why shouldn't a man expect some level of control? What do you think about that?
I think that if the person who is, let's say, I honestly think, well, we're just on my tongue is calling the shots, but I'm going to say, let's just say paying. Let's say paying, let's say providing,
Hmm.
which is, like there's a provision is so much more than a material thing, but for the simplicity of the conversation, we could say, like, let's say he's providing and
Hmm.
protecting, which is
Hmm.
protecting isn't just like when someone breaks in the house and now who gonna get out of bed. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
conversations are so simplified. It's like there's so many other ways for someone to provide, so many other ways for someone to protect, and yet protection in a physical way is important and valid, and financial provision is important and valid. So
Hmm.
nuances of the conversation. I do think that, like, let me use me for an example.
Hmm.
If I am not going to pay for this house, okay, and
Hmm.
I'm not paying for the dates, okay, I'm not paying for a big date. I'm gonna get in there when I where I fit in there, but I'm not gonna do it. I do think that and so the person who's doing the most in
Hmm.
those needs to be able to have a say in what's going on. How you can't it's not about control. And I think we got sometimes men use language that women bristle at because
Hmm.
we bristle at the word control, right? Maybe there's a maybe there's a more I'm going to say accurate
Okay.
way of describing what's really going on. Is it about control, right? And I don't know, we can talk about it. Is it really
Mhm.
about control, or is it about what's a better word for it?
I
Jer-
I would say, because I used this recently when I was doing this discussion of, was it no, you don't deserve a good man, no, you don't deserve a good woman. This whole concept of you cannot protect that who you cannot correct.
Okay.
And I think that's what most men typically mean when it comes to quote unquote control.
Yeah.
Uh, they're basically meaning like you don't listen, you don't heed warnings, concerns, feedback, instructions. You kind of only do those things based on if you agree with them or want to do them.
Mhm.
And it's like, I can't maintain any sense of control in this house. People are doing what they want. Nobody's listening. I'm giving warnings about how they're displaying themselves or how they're dressing or what time they're going out, and they could just do whatever they want. Like this man literally has no control over his house.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what it means. It's definitely a word that doesn't work well when you're talking about human beings, and adults at that. But I understand the concept of like, how can you protect somebody that you can never correct?
Yeah, I think correct is a good one. I also think that that's the word that a lot of women bristle at. The word that was coming to my mind as you were describing that, as you're describing it, you're describing stewardship. That's
Yeah.
what stewardship is. When
Mhm.
you have something, it's how you care for something. It's how do you facilitate the relationship? How do you manage the house? How do you manage the relationship? And so I think those are more descriptive words for what
Mhm.
is actually happening. And
Mhm.
I do think it is important if you want the man to lead the house, and most women are going to say yes to that. What
They'll
it
say it.
comes with, I know. Let me finish the sentence. What that comes with
Mhm.
is there's got to be an absolution of maybe we should be talking about control on maybe on the woman's side. We have to absolve some control,
Mhm.
some because he has to be able to he has to be able to steward the relationship in a way that he sees fit, because and here's the part I think maybe we're missing that
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you agree with this,
Mhm.
because he's going to be responsible for the outcomes. Like it's going to be looking at you. Okay, we're going to be looking at you. And I think that's the part that I was kind of forgetting. I'm like, there's a piece of this conversation that I'm forgetting to bring in, and that's it. It's
Mhm.
if if this doesn't go well, like if whatever the it is, right? Like if this trip doesn't go well, if this weekend, if this night, if this day, if this conversation, if the kids, like all these things, and we're saying the man is the head of the house.
Mhm.
the buck stops there,
Yep.
right? So if I am not willing, Taylor's not in this relationship. Taylor's not willing to. Is not. I'm not trying to have the buck stop with me because that's a heavy level of responsibility. That I think that there are some gendered aspects in terms of like who's really fit for that,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean who's the smart one. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that that doesn't mean, but who's fit for that. I mean,
Mhm.
there are things about our hormones that
Mhm.
make men it's a better idea for him
Mhm.
to do certain kinds of work because of the way that our hormones are different, the way our cycles are different, the way that we
Temperature regulation. Yeah.
move through the day, the way I mean, so
Mhm.
there are some things that make like rational sense for the man to have more control over, because control and responsibility are related. And I think maybe if we bring these more nuanced parts of the conversation up,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
makes, it makes this power issue not seem like a power issue. It makes it 'cause I think we approach it like kind of like who has the power,
Mhm.
and women want the power, but
Yeah.
the power comes with responsibility. And so if he's going to be responsible for it, he has
Mhm.
to be able to manage it and have a say, and even the final say. If
Yeah.
if the buck stops there.
Real quick, Dead Set Anime says it's unfair to ask men to curb their language because there is nothing wrong with the word control. I've kind of touched on this with previous guys who kind of struggle with this part of, I guess, my messaging. My belief system is that the Manosphere and Red Pill does a really, really great job of talking about all the differences that are happening or that occur between men and women. And then for whatever reason, when it comes to how to speak to each other, men seem to want to talk to women as if they're men. Now, if y'all, or if you're talking about the biological, evolutionary, psychological, and physiological differences between men and women, why wouldn't you think that that applies to how we choose to relate with each other? Wouldn't we tell women that he's not your girlfriend? So you don't have to talk to him the same way, that he doesn't have to be up to date with all the reality TV shows and all the gossip stuff that you and your girlfriends talk about. He's not, you could let him know those things, but at the end of the day, he's not your girlfriend. And wouldn't we say the same thing applies with men when it comes to conversations like this? Maybe as men, we should stop using some words that we know will derail the conversation, and get better at become better orators, better communicators. And the same way that I would interact with a child differently, I would interact with a woman differently. In fact, I would interact with different types of men differently based off of, how I see them, what I think they can retain. So we're constantly code switching, we're constantly trying to adjust to the audience that we're in person that we're interacting with. I want men to kind of get out of their heads when it comes to thinking that never adjusting is going to lead towards the outcomes that you want. And this is my other stance with this, because I see some other people who are kind of struggling with this, so to speak. Uh, Not all, but many of the men who struggle with the idea of having to, the same way we would ask women to adjust to men and masculinity and leadership, you have to adjust to femininity and the feminine and women. And I'm realizing that a lot of the guys who are the staunchest, most stubborn guys in this area, um, they're usually the guys who aren't getting a lot of the outcomes that they're happy with right now.